What's up guys, this is Javelin from English Tutor Hub and welcome back to my channel. Today's English lesson is about must versus have to. So we're comparing must with have to. Let's look at two example sentences. I have to hand in reports every week. I must buy some mangoes. Have to and must both express obligation. Alright? So the concept of obligation. There's an obligation to hand in reports every week and also an obligation to buy some mangoes. But there's a subtle difference. There is a small difference between the meaning of have to and must, and it is a different type of obligation. So the obligation of this is different to the obligation of this. So have to expresses objective obligation and must expresses something what we call subjective obligation. So what does this mean? Well, watch this lesson to learn the difference. I'm going to explain each of this in more detail, the difference. Let's start with have to and start with the form and structure. Here is the form and structure. We have the subject, then we have the verb have as a main verb and in the correct form, followed by the infinitive of another verb. So remember, the infinitive is the word to, followed by the base form of the verb. So we're going to look at some examples. So this is the present simple of have to. So remember I said that we put have in the correct form. So we take have in the main verb, which is the correct form, and so the correct form here is in the present simple. I have to work. So to work, this is the infinitive. I have to work. You have to work. He, she has to work. We have to work. You have to work. And they have to work. So notice that only one thing that changed is the third person singular. Alright? He, she has to work. Past simple. So again, we put have in the correct form, and the past simple form of have is had. In all of them. Had. In all of them, in all of the subjects. So, I had to work. You had to work. He, she had to work. We had to work. You had to work. And they had to work. And now, let's look at the future simple. Can you guess what's the form of this? So here it is. I will have to work. You will have to work. He, she will have to work. We will have to work. You will have to work. And they will have to work. So here we add the auxiliary verb will. Alright? It's the same for all of them. for the future simple. The form is quite simple. We have the subject, then we put have in the correct form for the tense that you want to use, and then you use the infinitive. Infinitive to followed by the base form of the verb. Alright? Now, let's look at the meaning. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, have to expresses objective obligation. So what does this mean? This means that the obligation is external. The obligation comes from someone or something else, and it's often a law, a legal requirement, or a rule, or an instruction. It's an obligation because someone else tells you to do something. It's an obligation from outside. Example, I have to mop the floor. My mother wants me to. So she has to mop the floor, and the obligation comes from her mother. It's an external obligation. Mom says or mother says it's necessary. It's not her decision to mop the floor, her mom, but from her mom. Alright? Next, I have a very good example. In Thailand, you have to drive on the left. So this is simply a law or rule. It's their decision to drive on the left or right. But because it's the law in Thailand and other countries that drives on the left because of the law. And the law is an external obligation. Number 3 example here. You have to wear gloves when you clean the bathroom. This is a glove. This is a glove, and there is an obligation to wear this when you clean the bathroom. And again, guys, this is necessary to avoid chemical burns. It is an external obligation. Alright? So that's have to. Must, form, and structure. Let's look at the form and structure. Subject, followed by must, followed by the base form of the verb. And this is not an infinitive. As you see, we do not have the word to for this. Example, here it is. I must help. You must help. He, she must help. We must help. You must help. And they must help. So it is the same for all of the subjects. Must is always the same form, and the base form of the verb is always the base form of the verb. That doesn't change. Alright? There's only one form for this. We don't have the present, past, and future. This is just single one form. But we use this one form, we use it to represent present. We use it to represent present or the future. It has a present or a future meaning. Example, I must help my mom with the housework. Here we are talking about obligation in the present. I must help with the housework now. For example, here is an example with a future meaning. Tim must repeat the exam tomorrow. So it's exactly the same form with this form, but now we are talking about the future. And to make that fair, we have to use the word tomorrow. Alright? Tomorrow is obviously in the future. We do not use must in the past. Alright? Now, let's look at the meaning of must. Must expresses subjective obligation. So, what does this mean? Well, must expresses personal or internal obligation. Remember, I said have to is external, a law or a rule from outside, but must is the opposite. Must, the obligation comes from you. It's internal. It's your choice. We often use must, in fact, to represent or to describe some sort of self-discipline. If you are very self-disciplined, then let them use it. Must. So, it's an obligation imposed by the speaker. No one is telling you to do something. Nobody else is ordering you to do something. It is your choice. You make it as an obligation because it is important. Alright? Example, we must be kind to others. So, in this sentence, it comes from us. It's personal. Must not. Subject plus must not plus base form of the verb. The form is subject followed by must not followed by base form of the verb. And the meaning of must not, well, we use must not for something that is not allowed or permitted. So, something is prohibited, which means not allowed or not permitted. It's an instruction not to do something, and the meaning can be objective or subjective. That means the meaning can be an external obligation or an internal obligation. So let's look at an example of external obligation. People must not pollute the water. So this is objective because the rule is external. People must not dirty the water or throw away any garbage into the water. It's prohibited or not allowed. The meaning can also be subjective. We can also use a structure for a more subjective or internal obligation. Example, I mustn't be late for school. So, this is a contracted form, and this is very common, mustn't. This is a contracted form of must not. We put an apostrophe here to represent the missing letter, or we replace an apostrophe to the letter that we omit, which is letter O. Alright? So I mustn't be late for school. So again, this is not a real obligation. It is an internal or personal decision to change her habit, in fact. So this is obviously subjective. Alright? Nobody is instructing her that she must be. Nobody is instructing her that she mustn't be late for school. It's her personal decision. Alright? So there we are. I hope you understand now the difference between have to and must. And here are some other videos that I strongly recommend. For a complete transcript of this lesson, visit englishtutorhub.com, and for other lessons that you might be interested in. Please subscribe to this channel, and don't forget to share, like, and let me know your thoughts and questions. This is Javelin. Thank you very much and see you soon. It's an obligation that we must be kind to others. I must clean my room. Nobody else has said to clean the room. It's his decision to clean his room. It's personal. He's disciplined. He makes the decision by himself. Alright?